bus learns new habits when roads learn new names. Mail roads, stage lines, schedules pinned to walls where clocks are still getting used to themselves. Wells Fargo coaches run like arteries. Through hills combed by oak and chaparral, dust keeps time. Drivers keep faith with teams that know the route by smell and slope. Shotgun messengers sit tall beside them, watching the brush where a stick can look like a barrel if a man has nerves need convincing. Into this theater walks a thin figure in a linen duster, a flour sack with neat eye holes pulled over his head like a shy curtain, and a double-barreled shotgun held with the care a librarian gives a rare book. "Please, gentlemen," the voice says calm, even throw down the box, no shout. No profanity, just the kind of courtesy that makes the moment stranger. Driver and messenger judge the odds. They see no posse in the brush, no horses snorting a cue. Just a figure who seems to have practiced this scene until the script fits like a glove. The chest comes down. The stage breathes again. He does not fire. He does not hit. He does not harm. He lifts, he leaves, and the dust closes the door behind him. Soon the name will arrive, Black Bart, though the man beneath the sack has another name for cards. And family. In some tellings, he is an English-born boy who grew up on American rivers. A miner who learned disappointment in sluices that loved other men better. A Civil War veteran with quiet shoulders and untidy ghosts. He will sign himself sometimes Black Bart, poet, which is a joke and a calling card. A promise that his robberies prefer rhyme to blood. But names come later. Tonight there is only a hill above a stage road and a man who has rehearsed the angles. He has selected this place for reasons the map understands, a bend that slows a coach, a grade that makes horses grateful for excuses, a thicket that frames a figure so neatly the driver reads it as certainty. The shotgun may be empty. It may be loaded with promises instead of shot. No one is in a mood to test it. When he is gone, the messenger will swear the robber was polite enough to help lift the chest down as if it were a neighbor's trunk. The driver will say the man apologized for the inconvenience as if the road itself had performed a discourtesy. Both men will agree that nothing about the moment wanted a bullet. By the time a posse tastes the hell's dust, the figure has become brush, and the brush has become a trail a careful foot refuses to teach. A week later, another stage on another road. The same calm voice. "Please, gentlemen," the same end. Newsprints notice. They have a weakness for paradox, a robber who says please, a villain who leaves poems. They lift their hats to the novelty and give him a corner of the front page that turns him into habit. Wells Fargo notices more soberly. They do not like losing boxes in a pattern. They assign detectives who know that patterns are invitations. One of them, James Hume, begin to keep a notebook whose pages smell like ink and patience, and the stages keep running. Because mail is a promise and the country has agreed to count on it. Between holdups, the man we call Black Bart moves like weather on footpaths and back roams. He travels alone the way some people do not mind silence. He sits in small hotels and reads quietly with a face that makes proprietors think of schoolmasters from better towns. He pays in clean bills. He does not drink much. He tips with the kind of exact change good men like to give. In the brush he is careful and modest. He does not trample sign he will need the next time. He borrows a hill's shadow and returns it without creasing it. Rendezvous with himself, he practices what he will say to frighten men and chooses words that keep hands steady on reins. He knows the value of lowering the temperature of a moment. He knows that fear is messy and mess is noisy and noise brings company he does not want. So he takes the box, leaves the manners, and goes. Home, if we can call any place that a woman might remember a husband who left for gold and came back with a way of looking at tables as if they were ledgers. Years collect on a face, but a gentleness remains in the voice the way a river keeps a curve after a flood. Poetry arrives like weather too, a scrap left in a box, a stanza pinned to a bush where a messenger will find it when his breath returns to curiosity. Rhyme is simple, the hand neat. It is not genius and it is not foolishness. It is a gesture, a signature that is less a dare than a smile. Here I lay me down to sleep. He might write it one scene to wait the coming morrow. The press approves. Public approves more. Proving a thief is a national pastime when the thief behaves and the bank looks fat. Wells Fargo does not approve, but they do not scold. They double guards where roads invite surprises. They brief their men to shoot only when shots have finished negotiating with other options. They pay Hume to think between holdups, and Black Bart goes on not every week and not with a clock, but with the kind of cadence that makes a detective as pencil draw circles on a map, and then frown at them. The West, for its part, learns a small lesson it did not expect to learn, that danger can be courteous, that a stick in a thicket can be a gun if a calm voice frames it correctly, that a road to predictable is a road a poet can schedule. The next parts will follow the poems and the pursuers. For now, fold the day like a letter. Someone has signed it with a name that is not on any baptism roll and sealed it with dust. A villain who says please becomes a column inch with a grin. A detective corrects his spectacles and decides rhyme schemes are clues even when they aren't. The theater of the stage road gets a playwright. A poem on a stage road is a strange flower. It grows out of fear and relief in the thin soil of a messenger's humor. The sheets are scraps, torn from a notebook that smells like tobacco and time. The lines rhyme in plain couplets, like footsteps that insist on walking together. Black Bart. Poet, the signature reads. Not poet, exactly. Poet, as if the number shows he knows the joke and invites you to enjoy it too. The newspapers love it. They print the verse with the same plea they reserve for train timetables and opera notices. A bad man with good manners is an editor's day off. Bart's poems do not appear at every scene, only at a few, which is how gifts should be given. They say little and accomplish a lot. No blood, no boasting. Only the sense that the robber is staging the event for everyone's benefit. A script takes shape. The stage rounds a bend and slows. Figure appears with a sack over his head and a shotgun that may or may not be full of thunder. The voice is unhurried, the words rehearsed but not theatrical. The chest is lifted down like a picnic hamper. No pockets are rifled. No passengers are shamed or searched. The robber tips the brim of the idea of a hat and vanishes where a deer might choose to vanish. On a hot day, James Hume, the detective, writes all this down. He has the patience of a man who lets coffee go cool while he compares footprints. He keeps clippings in an envelope that is not yet thick. He marks dates, roads, grades, proximities to creeks, who drove, who sat shotgun, which boxes were full to the brass and which were just heavy with rumor. Patterns emerge and blur. Bart favors the Northern California Gold Country, Sonora Road, Copperopolis grades. Valleys where oaks scattershade like coins. He prefers uphill pulls where teams lean into harness, and the crack of a whip would only insult their effort. He picks days when the heat sighs or the rain persuades men to think of home. Hume interviews drivers who do not want to sound like men who cooperated, and shotgun messengers who do not want to sound like men who blinked at the wrong second. He is kind in the way that extracts more facts than pride. Meanwhile, Bart polishes his act by subtraction. No companions, no horses, no shots, just a walk-in. Walk-out theft with the soft decorum of a polite stranger who has the misfortune to need your cash box urgently. He leaves behind a rumor that in the brush above the road stand gunmen ready to shred any resistance. Sometimes the rumor is helped by sticks set cleverly to look like rifles, in a nervous man as peripheral. Mostly the rumor is just the echo of an imagination that dislikes being the only coward present and invents company. Public negotiates its feelings. Stage robbery is a nuisance when you have a letter on board. It is a thrill when you have not. Bart becomes a story told in barber chairs while the lather cools and in kitchens, while the bread does the same. Children recite the signature, poet, and learn that numbers can be jokes if you let them. Wells Fargo negotiates nothing. They count losses. They calculate the difference between fear and ferment. They raise a bounty that makes thirsty men listen harder to strangers at the far end of the bar. But thirsty men do not catch Black Bart. He does not frequent bars that waste his silence. He prefers rooms whose wallpaper minds its own business. He keeps a small wardrobe that suggests schoolmaster more than saddle tramp a neat suit for town. A traveling face that remembers to smile and then forgets. He pays laundries and reads newspapers and steps around puddles the way men do, who dislike stains on cuffs. Poems thicken the persona like syrup. They also give Hume something to fold and unfold at his desk while he considers ink as evidence. The hand is neat. The diction is tidy. Not quite educated in the college sense, not quite careless in the camp sense. A man between places, or a man who has been in both. A rumor says Bart was once a miner insulted by spokesmen for Wells Fargo. Another rumor says he is a clerk who takes a vacation every few weeks for reasons his employer will misunderstand later. A third rumor says he is from nowhere in particular, a man manufactured by the irritation of roads too regular to survive unmolested. Hume likes facts better than rumors. He sketches a face from descriptions that match only in the thinness of the subject. He draws eye holes on a sack in his notebook and writes beside them, polite.com. Efficient, alone. Poems are not proof, but they are a robe. Someday, he thinks, the end of one will be tied to a name. Until then, the roads go on being roads. Torches keep their appointments with towns that count on them. The messengers keep their watch, and a thin man with careful hands rehearses an apology he may never have to use. Patterns harden, then crack. A stage lurches, a messenger gets lucky. Footprints remember what a handkerchief forgets. The more a man repeats a trick, the more the ground learns it. Roads do not memorize you, but men who drive them do. By 77 and 78 or thereabouts. For dates move like wagons on soft shoulders, Bart. As visits have acquired reputations of their own, drivers mutter to horses on certain hills, coaxing them with jokes that hope to offend fate into silence. Messengers keep thumbs near hammers when a bend feels like a man waiting to happen. Sometimes nothing happens and the day tastes like relief that tries not to be superstitious. Sometimes the sack appears and the voice says please and everyone acts the way their wives would want them to. Once, a messenger fires. The shot goes wide because surprise is a poor marksmanship instructor. Bart does not answer in kind. He thanks the man for the warning and concludes the business with a speed he respects in others too. Another time, a driver refuses. Bart sighs a small sigh a schoolmaster might sigh when a boy insists to plus to his 5. He adjusts the angle of the barrel and lowers the angle of the man's enthusiasm. The chest comes down. No one bleeds. A mask left and brush tells a story in canvas and dust. Eye holes cut with a tidy hand. The whisker snags, which could mean the wearer is close-shaven or careful or both. Cut of the sack does not tell a tailor anything, but it tells Hume that the robber likes neat in small things, which argues neat in larger ones too. Boot prints are modest. A man who lifts his feet instead of dragging his heels. Weight not heavy enough to make the mud ring at the edges, which suggests a frame that spends more time reading than plowing. On a hill above the Sonora Road, sticks are planted where rifles might rest if men were present to rest them. No men are present. A stage crew that saw them earlier did not lie. They merely told the truth their nerves had edited. Hume walks the scene with the steadiness of a man who has learned to translate nerves back into objects. He notes the new cut of the grade, which has made teens struggle in giving a robber a better excuse to be believed. When he asks the chest to oblige him by coming to ground, he wants better luck, and luck is often something carried in pockets by laundrymen. In towns along the routes, Bart becomes a parlor story. He is older in some tellings and younger in others, more dashing here, more ghostly there. Children sketch a robber with square shoulders and a sack like a private moon. Mothers remind them that politeness is a virtue even when practiced by the wrong people. Fathers remind themselves that guns solve fewer problems than they start when money is all a man wants. Bart eats in rooms where men do not glance beyond their own plates. He keeps a hat that does not force clerks to remember him. He folds his napkin. He tips. He reads the paper without moving his lips. In a small San Francisco lodging, a guest named Charles Bolton to some, Bowles to others. Names are coats we try on. Pays to have shirts done by a laundry that marks its customers with numbers and letters that tell their own small poems. Hume cannot see this yet, but his notebook is moving toward it the way a river curves toward a confluence, even when rocks insist it shouldn't be. Near Copperopolis, a stage labors uphill. The air tastes like hot iron. Brush takes a breath. The sack appears. The voice says please. Something different happens. A messenger, young and stubborn in the way youth tries on bravery like a borrowed coat, waits a beat too long before obeying. A movement, a flash, a report that space remembers. Bart staggers. He does not fall. He completes the scene with the same rigor he brings to all his scenes. The chest is down. The road gives up its goods. But the brush receives a drop of blood and a piece of cloth that has opinions about soap. The stage goes on. The robber goes off. And luck quietly trades teams. Laundry marks do not forget. A detective with a pencil learns to speak washerman. A polite voice It drops itself in brush and whispers from pockets, but it enjoys company when a patient mind sits down beside it. At the Copperopolis scene, deputies gather threads. Among them is a handkerchief with a mark sewn by routine letters and numbers that mean nothing to mountains and everything to laundries. James Hume does not rush. He has a city's worth of steam and starts to interview. He visits laundries until the smell of lye becomes a kind of cologne. At each counter he shows the mark. At each counter he watches the clerk's eyes move from cloth to memory. At one, the eyes say yes. The mark belongs to a customer who signs a CE. Bolton, who sends shirts that prefer clean corners, who tips fair, who reads without fidgeting, who lives in modest rooms where the window minds the street and the tenant minds himself. They walk to the lodging. Clerk points the way with a finger that understands the gravity of pointing at a man other men have been looking for. The door opens onto a room that reveals a life lighter than it could have been and heavier than its tenant hoped. A small trunk with a soldier's thrift, a suit brushed within an inch of its pride. A hat that a stage driver might not recall, a shotgun that remembers grease more than powder. The man is thin, composed, and resigned in the style of someone who has already had a long conversation with himself and lost politely. Mr. Bolton, Hume says, or shall I call you something else? The eyes consider the weight of continuing. They set it down. Charles Bowles, Bolton, Bowles again, admits the thing that needs admitting. Not with drama, with the same economy he brought to Hills. He says he never fired a shot to hurt a man. He says he preferred not to frighten ladies and tried to frighten gentlemen only as much as strictly necessary. He says the poems were for levity, not for insult. The chest count arrives to meet the confession. Dates shake hands with dates. Roads nod to roads. Ink enjoys its own arithmetic. In court the public enjoys the odd spectacle of a bandit who speaks like a neighbor. He does not posture. He does not apologize in florid paragraphs. He simply accepts the portion and the place. San Quentin receives him like a ledger receives a new column. Years are written where months used to be. The gate closes with a sound that pretends to be final and is only thorough. Behind stone, a man who loved the feel of a good shirt crisps into a routine that asks little and takes much. He reads because reading travels without breaking rules. He keeps to himself because trouble prefers company. He minds his manners because manners belong to him and not to the state outside. Stage roads continue their appointments. Drivers tell newer men how a sack once contained a voice that made bullets unnecessary. Messengers keep watch with the same care as before. Because the world invents replacements for famous men without asking permission, Hume closes a notebook and opens others. When asked how he knew, he points to patience and to laundry marks and to the axiom that repetition is a habit that likes to wear the same hat to town. Papers run cartoons of a bandit in a sack reading a book behind bars. Children laugh in ways that do not lose sleep. Wells Fargo posts a notice that says the roads are safe again, and then quietly pays the next detective to remain unconvinced. Years pass the way water passes a rock. Slow, then sudden, then as if nothing had ever changed. Pearl arrives like early spring. The gate opens. The suit looks like it remembers how to be a suit. The hat sits uncertain, then takes its position and decides to act as if nothing has happened to hats in the meantime. Charles steps into a light that does not recognize him. Journalists ask him if he will rob again. He answers with the dignity of a man who would prefer a private question and answers a public one anyway. I am through with the road. Perhaps he is. Perhaps the road is through with him. After prison, a few sightings, then rumor. A letter here, a story there. The remainder of a legend that preferred footprints to headlines. Freedom after stone is a thinner kind than the songs suggest. It does not open like a gate. It opens like a book already half read. In San Francisco, a man in a neat suit walks streets that prefer noise. He visits a tailor who remembers measurements better than names. He eats in a dining room where waiters practice being invisible. He signs a register with a steady hand and a name with fewer letters than he used in poems. A reporter finds him once and writes a column that tastes like triumph. The man in the column says he is done with roads and would like the city to return the favor. The city nods the way cities do and forgets. Sightings pile up like postcards without addresses. A stage driver says he saw a familiar set of shoulders watching a coach labor a grade, and then turn away as if tipping a hat to the past. A shopkeeper in Nevada swears a polite stranger bought paper and left a coin to write for the purchase. A hotel ledger in a small town records a Charles who stayed 3 nights and read by a window that watched the road but did not judge it. No robbery follows these sightings. No sack appears. The poems keep their own counsel. Some say he went east. Some say he went quietly to ground in a place that asked no questions so long as the rent was on time and the sidewalk was watered on hot mornings. Some say he died in a room where the news never found him and where a respectable suit hung on a chair back like a memory of a different man. Legends prefer open endings. They like to leave chairs empty in the corner of the story where a listener can seat his own uncle, or neighbor, or the polite stranger he sat beside on a train once. What Black Bart leaves behind is small and strong, that violence is not the only theater, that manners can manage moments guns would spoil, that a road is safer when both sides of the transaction understand the transaction will be brief, and nobody needs to practice speeches. Wells Fargo prefers other legacies, and we do not begrudge them that. Mail should arrive, drivers should go unmolested, the cash box should keep its secrets until a bank unlocks them, but in the gallery of Old West faces, where scowls and scars often take up entire frames, a thin man with a linen duster and a sack with neat eye holes holds a corner with a smaller smile. He made a nuisance into a ritual that spared blood in an age that often worshipped it. In the larger braid of our story, Bart S. stage poems tie a bow between the polite confidence, parade agent, and the noisier celebrity that newspapers will hand to men like Wild Bill. While Bart was moving boxes off stages with apologies, Deadwood heard a chair scrape back from a card table and a man in a frock coat turned to catch a bullet meant for the legend more than for the person. From the quiet robber, we pass gently, chronologically enough, to a gunfighter whom headlines loved hard and who learned how headlines end. Newsprint learns to be hungry, a long coat, a pair of pistols worn but forward, a gambler's smile on a borrowed chair in a mining town that never learned to whisper.